like to call the meeting to order. Now, first of all, maybe I'll just wait. Okay. So this is our first public meeting with our new council. And I just want to say how exciting it is. And again, I've heard that from many, many people around the city. I would like to welcome Mayor Masters, Councillor Stadnichuk, Councillor LeBlanc, Councillor Shaw, Councillor Zakidniak, and Councillor Mole. And also the returning councillors, Councillor Hawkins, Councillor Stevens, Councillor Findura, and Councillor Mancinelli. So today is our first meeting, and so we're going to move forward a little bit slower just so we can kind of get through the procedures as well for everyone. Also, we also have people that are with us virtually. So good afternoon and welcome to November 25th, 2020 Executive Committee meeting. To ensure social distancing measures are being met during this time, some members of the city administration are attending the meeting today through video conferencing. A reminder to those in attendance today that all reports considered at this meeting will be considered by City Council at its meeting scheduled for Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020. And the deadline to submit for that meeting, submit a brief to the clerk's office, is 1 p.m. on Thursday, November 26, 2020. I would like to also remind those who are attending through video conferencing to ensure that your video camera and microphones are turned off. And when speaking, remember to unmute your microphone and enable your video camera. So with that, if I can have someone please move a motion to approve the agenda, please. Thank you, Councillor Findura. I will call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Can I have someone please move a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the Executive Committee meeting held on October 7th, 2020. Councillor Stevens, thank you. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. So we will now consider the EX 20-30. That's the 2020 Committee Structure Review. Can I ask someone from administration, and that would be Mr. Nicol, if you could please introduce the report for us.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. It's a requirement after each election for Council to review its existing committee structure with a view to confirming its current structure or taking into account new recommendations. The recommendation before you and the one after it with respect to the 2021 meeting calendar are linked very closely. The recommendations tie into one another. That is, I will walk through the recommendations, but I want you to understand that in no way are the recommendations that we have put forward tying your hands. It is completely up to you as members of the committee to determine the committee structure as you see it fit, but we have used our best recommendation to put forward what we believe is a more streamlined council committee structure, which in turn facilitates, again, what I would respectfully suggest is a more streamlined meeting calendar for 2021. So just to walk you through it, if you turn to page 1 of the report, we're basically recommending the following: that the existing Priorities and Planning Committee be disestablished and that its responsibilities be transferred to Executive Committee, and that is outlined in Appendix A. We are further recommending that the Finance and Administration Committee be disestablished and its responsibilities and any delegated authorities be transferred to the Executive Committee, as outlined in Appendix A as well. And the name of that new committee would remain Executive Committee. We are recommending that a new Committee of Council, which we are proposed naming as the Operations and Community Services Committee, be comprised of 5 councillors, that it be established from the disestablishment, transfer of respective responsibilities and delegated authorities as outlined in Appendix B from two former committees, those being the Community and Protective Services Committee and the former Public Works and Infrastructure Committee. With that, the main committees of council as they stand today would be the Operations and Community Services, Executive Committee, the Mayor's Housing Commission, and the Regina Planning Commission. Now you'll note when we get to the calendar in the second report that at this point in time we're just kind of sore thumbing where we would put the Mayor's Housing Commission should it continue to be established, because it does not meet on a regular monthly basis, or certainly didn't since its inception back in 2013. We're also recommending that you direct my office to prepare a report respecting membership on the Regina Appeal Board. It's one of our 3 quasi-judicial boards. It hears appeals on nuisance-related matters, property-related matters, and will soon be hearing appeals respecting body rub establishments and other licensing requirements. And for that reason, we are requesting that a report be written to see if it better suits having public members on that as opposed to councillors. And then the final recommendations are just the procedural recommendations requesting the city solicitor to make the necessary bylaw amendments. We believe that this streamlines the main committees. They better align city operations and services with each designated committee, provides for a more efficient and streamlined decision-making process, and equally important, it also provides an opportunity to give each of you a bit more time. So instead of having so many committees, we've got them down, we've pared them down a bit. That will reduce your meeting commitments and perhaps will also better align with some of your other outside responsibilities that you have. It will facilitate a smoother transition to what we're proposing with respect to twice monthly city council meetings. In terms of the status, the option essentially is status quo, which would keep 7 committees, and it would have meetings on Wednesdays as well, but it does make it much more busy for you. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. I'm prepared to answer any questions that you've got, and I'm sure you all have different opinions on this. And once we get this structure in place, then we can have a fulsome discussion on how you want the meeting schedule to run, because first we have to establish committees before we can figure out how our calendar is going to work. So with that, I would welcome any questions from any members of the committee that you wish to pose.
Thank you, Mr. Nichol. Can I have someone please move the report? Councillor Hawkins? Sorry, and I also do have an amendment provided, that was provided from administration. Will you move that as well, Councillor Hawkins? Good, thank you. Do you want to speak first?
Madam Chair, I'll speak briefly to this. I support the proposals put forward recommended by the clerk for the reasons he gives. I think it streamlines the structure. I think it's a more efficient organization. And I think the committee jurisdictions match better the workload that we have. In supporting it, I'd like to put forward one amendment. And Madam Chair, I believe the clerk is able to put this up on the board. Actually, there's 2 amendments. Pardon me, there's 2 amendments. The first is the clerk has asked that we include in the terms of reference of the Operation and Community Services Committee the following addition be included in the terms of reference: consider and make recommendations to council regarding decisions related to licensing and bylaw enforcement, except where delegated to another committee, and that would be part of Appendix B. So I'd move that, and then I have a second amendment that I would like to move as well. So maybe we should deal with the first amendment that the clerk has requested and then deal with the second amendment.
That's fine, yeah, go ahead. Mr. Nichol?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This recommendation is again it's an administrative legal matter that was flagged for us by Mr. Ware's legal team, that we just need to ensure that the bylaw directions that are being given to his office include this reference to licensing and bylaw enforcement. Again, I think it touches on what council recently passed with respect to body rub establishments and their licensing requirements and other various taxi bylaws, et cetera, that just need to be captured in this. So it's an administrative matter. Mr. Wary, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that.
Mr. Weary?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Probably mostly for the benefit of the new councillors, these areas of responsibility were fairly active in the last council. So whether they'll be as active for this council, I guess, is an open question in terms of policy changes that council may decide to make. But I thought it was important that it be flagged as part of the jurisdiction of this committee, and agree with the clerk's recommendation that that's the committee that those areas of responsibility should reside. So nothing further. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll accept it as a friendly amendment if that's helpful.
Okay. That's fine, thank you, great. Just for the new councillors, just so you're aware, if you do want to speak, if you just press your button, that flags, I apologize, I should have said that earlier, that puts you in the queue to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'll now move to the second amendment, which is an amendment that I am proposing, and you'll see it up on the board. It deals with the Mayor's Housing Commission and the establishment of a new wellness committee. I'll read this. That item 1D3, the Mayor's Housing Commission, be removed and disestablished, and that an item 1C3 be added to include the establishment of a new committee of council, the Community Wellness Committee, as follows. A, comprised of 5 councillors. B, authorized to consider and make recommendations to council relating to all policy aspects in the areas of housing, poverty reduction, mental and physical wellness, addiction and safe from harm, discrimination, and other social determinants of health and crime. C, be governed by the procedures set out, et cetera, there. And D, meet once a month at a time to be determined by the city clerk, having regard to avoiding scheduling conflicts with regularly scheduled meetings of council and its other main committees. Madam Chair, this is a follow-on really from a motion that was introduced in the last council meeting of the last council, introduced by Councillor Stevens and unanimously supported by that council, which sought to deal with the issue of the social determinants of crime by having council work through community organizations and others to develop a citywide harm reduction strategy as part of a community wellness benefit and safety approach. And this amendment seeks to operationalize that by setting up a committee which would be charged with that responsibility. I think I really just want to make 2 points. First of all, this really embodies the social aspects of building a humane Regina, a city which cares for all of its citizens, even its most disadvantaged. And secondly, it recognizes that we as a city can't leave it to others to take the lead on this. We have to take the lead ourselves and then invite all other stakeholders and community organizations to join with us. The jurisdictions of the old housing committee will be folded into this committee, and then this committee would add the other social determinants that I've mentioned. So on that basis, I'd ask that this committee be set up, and I'd ask for councillors to support this recommendation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Any other discussion? Councillor Findura?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I say thank you to Councillors Hawkins for bringing that. I sat on the Mayor's Housing. Yes, it was something that was formed to discuss things on housing and social, but this will go deeper. So in my opinion, we will be reaching out to many other stakeholders and community that are in front line with what the committee is going to be debating. So I'm definitely supporting this, and I commend, and I'm asked the council to look at it with eyes wide open. let's move forward. So I will definitely support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fundura. Mayor Masters.
Thank you. I'd like to also thank Councillor Hawkins for presenting this. I'm wondering, in an effort to streamline committees, does this belong under the newly structured, like if we're striking committees to create other committees, does it belong in reporting to, you're going to create another committee with 5 individuals, does this belong under the Community Services and Operations Committee? Like, would this not be a little bit of what they're working on? And I think you guys, and I did read it, I've got the motion from September, I believe, or October, where we've tasked administration with developing a framework for community wellness. And I have spoken with Chief Bray, and he is busy working with administration on what this could be and what it could look like. Does it fall under reporting already to, would it not fall this natural, if in the absence of this motion, would it not fall under Community Protective Services?
Mr. Holden? Oh. Mr. Holden.
Through you, Madam Chair. So thanks for the question. Without the establishment of the new committee, the reports would go through Operations and Community Services. Fully understand what Councillor Hawkins is putting forward. I think it's important for council to know that there is a committee called the Human Services Partnership. On that committee sits a lot of community entities. So the Regina Police Service, Evan Bray, actually co-chairs that committee. There's representation from the Public School Board and the Separate School Board. The City of Regina sits around that table, social services, mental health, and there's other agencies. So that is the entity that is working on the community health and well-being strategy that we'll be bringing forward towards middle of this year. So the committee that's being suggested, if it passes, then I think there is an opportunity to work through the Human Services Partnership to make sure that we're engaging with community stakeholders, individuals, to make sure that we're addressing the very nature of the items that are included in the motion that Councillor Hawkins has put forward.
Thanks, Chris.
Councillor Stevens?
Thank you. Totally in support of this addition. I think the Mayor's Housing Commission, through the chair, did have a lot of unique reporting and a unique mandate. This would be very nicely wrapped up in this new committee. I think the addictions and community well-being portfolio is going to expand in significance over the years, and I suspect it would overburden an operations and community service committee if we do amalgamate them. So I think this is going to be important as a standalone committee. It also gets more councillors involved with this discussion. And I think, to the city manager's point, the fact that there's already a community entity and board doing a lot of advocacy work, I think it would be a very nice way of reporting to council through this unique committee. So I'll be supporting it.
Thank you. Mayor Masters, still on?
Oh, no, I think the idea of the committee is, it was more the notion that if the work was already, the strategy or the framework was already being developed, if it was premature to establish a committee already, I have no issue at all with the disestablishment of the Mayor's Housing Commission, knowing that something would be coming forward as it relates to community wellness.
Okay, great, thank you. Just remember to turn your buttons off if you're finished. Okay, Councillor Shaw. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, okay.
Councillor LeBlanc.
Councillor LeBlanc.
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
would just piggyback on Councillor Stevens' comment a bit. His concern that folding this into the Operations and Community Services Committee may overwhelm it. My concern would be the converse, which is that given all else they have to do, this portfolio may be neglected. And so I'm in favor of having it hived off on its own so it gets the due consideration it deserves. So I'll be voting in favor of the proposed amendment.
Thank you. Okay, well, I see no further questions. I will ask the city clerk to take the vote.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. On the vote of the amendment, I will begin with Councillor Hawkins as you moved it, please. Counselor Stadnichuk,
Favor?
Counselor Stevens,
In favor?
Counselor Findura,
In favor?
Counselor LeBlanc,
In favor.
Counselor Shaw. Counselor Zahidniak,
In favor.
Counselor Mancinelli,
In favor.
Counselor Mole,
In favor.
Mayor Masters,
In favor.
and Counselor Bresciani.
In favor.
The amendment passes unanimously, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now consider item EX.
You have to go back to the main motion.
Oh, right, no, right. Okay, we'll go back there.
So
Thank
If
you.
there's any other
Yeah,
questions.
sorry. Let's go back to the main motion. Thank you for that amendment, Councillor Hawkins. Back to the main motion. Is there any other questions in regards to the main motion? Councillor Findura.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to make a comment on the Regina Appeals Board. I will welcome the change. I served on that committee for 1 year, and it was very difficult to deal with. It puts a council in a peculiar position, with specifically to bylaws and all. And there's only 6 things that you can do on that committee. Plus, even with what I do for a living, it stops me from sitting on that committee, because when that happens, it puts me over there, and I'll have to judge about myself. So going to civilian oversight, it'll be much better. I think we'll get a better result. So I will strongly encourage and recommend that be changed. So that'll be, I don't think I need any kind of a motion. This is already going. Report will come. So I just want to encourage the administration to look at that and make it so, because keep the council off of that. I don't believe we need to be there. There's only so many things you can do on that committee. You kind of cornered with the 6 things you can do. I'm the good guy, the other guy's the bad guy, so we flip back and forth. So it just didn't seem to, the time spent and energy and resources on that from council didn't yield the results. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further questions. Sorry. Councillor Stevens.
Yeah, so my first question has to do with the new Operations and Community Services Committee through the chair. What's the anticipated workload of this committee if we combine both of them? I'm just trying to give, especially the new councillors, a sense of what this would look like when it's combined. Is it streamlined? Yes. What about the workload? What does this resolve other than the scheduling issue?
Okay. Mr. Nichol?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. So Councillor Stevens, part of it is with the reduction of 2 committees, it's automatic that there will be freed up time on your calendars. Finance and Administration typically was not a busy committee, and so rolling it into Executive Committee to us made sense, particularly because so many of those items, whether you're dealing with the budget or annual reports and that, are something that should be considered by the entire membership. With respect to community services and the former Public Works and Infrastructure, it's always a bit of a hit and a miss as to trying to determine exactly what their workloads will be, because so much of it depends on the issues that are coming forward. In the last year, for example, Community and Protective Services was busy with certain items, and PW might have been a bit quieter, and yet, depending on the issues that are at hand, or if there's, say, money coming from the federal or provincial governments, there may be more money coming to the PWI committee because of infrastructure. But we felt that the 2 of them are essentially dealing with the outer-facing operations of the city, whether that be in the Community Services Department or the Public Works. So in our humble opinion, we basically have 3 primary committees of council. Everyone is on Executive Committee. 3 members of council are on the Regina Planning Commission, along with 8 citizen members, and the Regina Planning Commission is a very busy committee.
Yeah.
That one perhaps takes the most time of anyone, and as Ms. Howrlock said in her comments last week, approximately 60% of your items often come from areas under her jurisdiction. And so we think that with this committee, you will now have 3 primary committees and gives everybody quite a good opportunity to say, well, we all sit on executive committee. Do I want to sit on the ops committee? Do I want to sit on planning commission? Keeping in mind what other committees you might go on. But with respect to the main committees, long answer is we think that this will streamline it from both the decision-making and from timing requirements.
Thank you. Last question, in terms of the appeals board, I know the reform is pending, but we still need to populate it with councillors before that comes forward? Yes, I think we would ask that perhaps we have a 3 or 4 month interim board membership. What we'll do is pending council's approval of this next Wednesday, we would immediately seek to advertise those positions. We also want to make sure that we have appropriate training for the members so that they could say, hit this running perhaps on April 1st. Part of the impetus on this is to ensure that we don't run afoul of court decisions. We want to make sure that the rules and procedures of the appeal board are well known and that the rules of procedural fairness are followed, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just a way of upping the game on this and also taking away, as what Councillor Findura alluded to, with that perception of difficulties and some conflict of interests that are attached.
Thank you. So I'll just make a comment myself. I think one of the things from the last 4 years, I think we have seen that there have been reduced numbers for meetings for sure for community protective services and public works. And I would agree, and I want to thank the clerk for Mr. Nicol for bringing this forward, because I think as part-time counselors, we have to make sure that when they say it's deemed a part-time job, we have to make sure that our time is efficient. And that means if there's duplication and we can combine some of these, I think it's vitally important. One of the ones is finance, and I just sat on that last year, and that was important because I think all of council needs to be part of those discussions when Mr. Lacey brings those forward. So I'm glad to see that one move forward. So I do see now Councillor Mancinelli, go ahead.
I thought I'd just share a little bit of experience from this. I sat on Community Protective Services, Finance, Admin, and Public Works and Infrastructure. And looking at the meeting schedule, what I had a section off and the work we actually did, there should be no problem for the necessary reading and taking of materials to make proper decisions by council as a whole, as they described. I think it will be a really well streamlined process, and looking at how much time was sectioned off to cancel meetings or to 20-minute meetings, I think this is a really smart move. So, as well, I sat on Regina Appeals Board. If we do have to populate with councillors, I'm just saying I am no longer chairing it. I'm done yelling at people. Everyone gets scared when I raise my voice, so I'm going to keep it that way. So. Thank
you, Councillor Mancinelli. Okay, so I don't see any more questions. I think that's it. I will ask the clerk, Mr. Nicol, to please call for the vote.
Thank you. I will again start with you, Councillor Hawkins, as you move the motion.
In favor.
Councillor Moll.
In favor.
Councillor Mancinelli.
I'm in favor.
Councillor Zahidniak.
In favor.
Councillor Shaw.
In favor.
Councillor LeBlanc.
In favor.
Councillor Findura.
In favor.
Councillor Stevens.
In favor?
Councillor Stadnichuk.
In favor.
Mayor Masters.
In favor.
Councillor Bresciani.
In favor.
Passes unanimously. Madam
Great.
Deputy Mayor.
Okay. Now, we actually will consider the EX 20-31, 2021 City Council and Committee meeting calendar. Mr. Nicol, if I can ask you to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. The determination of the annual calendar for council is one of the potentially most difficult things that my office has to do administratively, trying to juggle meeting demands, people's preferences, and their availability. As I said at the outset of the meeting, once we get the committee structure in place, we've peeled off part of the onion. And so these recommendations, which are subject to your discussion now, are based on what was just passed, with the exception that we will then populate it with the new Council Committee on Community Wellness, Community and Well-Being And as Councillor Hawkins' motion noted, we won't be scheduling that to conflict with any of these main committees. So in a nutshell, we are recommending that council will now meet every second Wednesday at 1 o'clock as opposed to 1:30, except during the months of July and August. And as an aside, we would arrange for lunch to be provided to council members at 12 noon on a council day, just to give you some time to get here and socialize and whatnot. We would propose that executive committee meet every second Wednesday at 9 in the morning on alternating weeks, except during July and August, as noted in Appendix A. So in July and August, executive committee would meet once a month in July and August. Regina Planning Commission would meet once per month on Wednesdays at 4 p.m. The Regina Planning Commission has 8 citizen members along with its 3 members from City Council, and it has traditionally met later in the afternoon to accommodate those citizen members. The new Operations and Community Services Committee would meet once a month on Wednesdays at 2 p.m., again, except during July and August. So what you would see is on one Wednesday a month, it would be Executive Committee and Planning Commission. The next Wednesday would be Council. The following Wednesday would be Executive Committee and Operations and Community Services. And then the fourth Wednesday would be Council. And we would repeat that through the year, keeping in mind that there's a couple of statutory holidays that would impact that. But those are all outlined in the calendar. The recesses and adjournment for council and its committees would be adjusted to reflect the new starting times. So just so you know, 2 hours and 15 minutes into any committee meeting, there is an automatic adjournment for 15 minutes. And for council and committees, there is an automatic adjournment at 4.5 hours of duration unless a motion is made and passed to continue the meeting. The public release of meeting materials will remain on Friday afternoon, immediately preceding any meeting. So if we have council on Wednesday, December 2nd, council materials will be publicly released and you will receive them Friday afternoon. And this would move to a Thursday in those situations where there's a stat holiday on a Friday. And just to explain, the reason I'm saying this so detailed is because it has to be this detailed so that the drafting can comply with it in the legal department. Correct, Mr. Waring? Now, written delegation submissions for council. There are no delegation submissions required for committees. People can just show up and speak. For council, there is a requirement for written delegations. And what we are proposing this year is that we give people until noon on Monday before the meeting. So 2 days before whatever council meeting there is, we would provide you with any written delegations. We need to do this because there's such a short turnaround time between a committee and the next council meeting that it doesn't make sense to require it sooner than that. And 9 out of 10 people who appear as a delegation at committee, if they come to council, typically say very similar things. So putting it in paper and submitting it to our office in writing should not be that difficult. Again, that would be moved to a Tuesday where there's a holiday. The one thing I am asking for direction from council, and I need direction from council on this, the existing bylaw says that submissions must be received in order to be considered by a certain time. In my 13 years here with the city council has never wanted to enforce that. They've always said, well, you know, if it comes in a couple hours late, can we let it on the agenda? So we will then do an amendment to the agenda, etc. That's great for your public relations. It's miserable for my office trying to put those together and get them out for you because we can't release the agenda until we have all the materials. And I've had staff on occasion here till 8 o'clock on a Friday night because we're still dealing with late submissions. So I would like to propose that you give me the authority to say, no, it's 12 noon and that's it. But again, if we want to streamline and make things more efficient, and people have had plenty of time for this. And then with respect to that, again, Mr. Waring's office would be directed to make the necessary amendments to these bylaws, and that this would be discussed next Wednesday for final approval at council. And again, as I've said before, and I said during last week, the decisions around the calendar, the timing of the calendar, the day of the week you meet, et cetera, that is yours and yours alone to make. We will work to accommodate whatever we can. It can get gnarly at times, but our best recommendation with respect to the existing structure that you just approved is to go what we have recommended in Appendix A.
Great, thank you. Can I have someone please move the report with the amendment of replacing the mayor's housing to Community Wellness Committee on the calendar? Councillor Findera? Thank you. And do you want to speak? Go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead.
thank you. So first question through you, Madam Chair, is when the reports come to, is any reports with delegation, will we be looking at that first? So however the schedules is being set up for council meeting, is the delegation, any reports that come with delegation, so then it means that previous time we would have delegations sitting and waiting for, talk to us for hours. Are we going to structure that way that we will, if there's any delegation that's on any reports, those reports will schedule that way, that will fit in so that people don't come here, don't wait, get it over with, and then everyone moves on. Is that the proposal? Is that the process that we're going to do this?
Mr.
Madam
Nicol?
Chair?
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Findera. That is the typical process where it's been a long-standing practice of council and committees that, for example, if you had 4 agenda items, but there were only delegations wishing to speak to item number 4, at the call of the chair, they would be moved up first. So we try to accommodate that as best we can. The unfortunate part is when we have meetings and we perhaps have 25 or 30 delegations, there's nothing we can do about that. The people who are numbered 25 to 30 will inevitably complain, but somebody had to be numbered 25 to 30. So there's no easy way around that. Now, again, working closely with Mr. Holden and having meetings every week, like committees every second week and council every second week, we really are hoping that we can largely avoid those meetings where you're going to have 10 or 15 or 20 delegations. But I would caution you that inevitably it's going to happen. All it takes is a real flashpoint item to come onto an agenda, and you will have a lot of delegations. So we try our best. That is the practice that we will continue to use, but I cannot say that we can guarantee that somebody's not going to have to wait.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So just a question on, we moved the, I like to hear it, we moved the meetings from Monday night, 5:30, because that was easy for everyone to come in as a delegation, to Wednesdays. What's the feeling out there? What are we hearing? I mean, we heard the complaints when we started that it's difficult to get downtown here, find parking and all that. Is people satisfied, or they cannot make to the meetings? Are we, because the conversation were before that, we made it Wednesday because you don't want to hear the public speak because it's hard for them to get here. What are we hearing?
Mr. Nicol?
Sure. I can't speak to what you may or may not have heard from your constituents. What I can tell you is that when this was one of the concerns that was raised, or questions that was raised this time last year when we decided to move from Mondays to Wednesdays and from evening council meetings to afternoon council meetings. We were monitoring the participation of delegations during January and February and the early part of March until COVID shut us down. And we weren't seeing any noticeable difference. If we had 12 or so delegations at night, we were getting sometimes more than that in the afternoons. You'll talk to 6 people, 3 people can't come in the evening, 3 people can't come in the afternoon. I mean, it really is something that you have to decide what best fits with your schedule. We kept it on Wednesdays in the afternoon because that's basically what status quo is. If you chose to go to an evening, I would strongly recommend you go to a Wednesday evening. Keep it all on the same day. That was one of the things we heard last year from members of council, that the predictability of keeping everything on one day, albeit with different times, was far better than having the committees scattered around different days. Because we used to have committees Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and councils on Mondays. So there were times you felt you were always here.
Yeah, so just a quick comment. Yeah, no, it's just for the, our new colleagues to hear what we dealt with last year about this. So I'm okay, I'm satisfied with Wednesdays. Wednesdays is City of Regina. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday is elsewhere. Wednesday is here for me. So scheduling, Councilor Mensley mentioned, scheduling is much easier to making sure you schedule for one day. You can figure everything out, and I think it's working. So for me, it was good. I just wanted to hear the comments, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fundera. Councillor Mancinelli?
Thank you. When we first made this switch, there was consideration for delegations, but the other consideration was for housekeeping items on the agenda that kept on getting swept off and to the next meeting. Sometimes it was impeding administration from making accomplishments. I'm just wondering how things have gone on that front. With the large delegations, do we continue to have problems with housekeeping items getting pushed off? And with the 2 council meetings, is that enough to rid that problem?
Mr. Holden? Mr. Holden? Yeah. Are you on? Yeah, it says it's on.
No, it's on. It's delayed. Thank you, Madam Chair. So to your point, Councillor Mancinelli, I mean, in the instances where there is a topic that's very controversial and, you know, as Mr. Nicol indicated, we get 15 and 20 delegations, that's when we got into challenges in terms of crunch on the calendar. So we're hoping that with 2 executive and 2 council meetings that we'll be able to manage that more effectively, and just in terms of how we manage the agenda and the timing of putting things in front of you. With more meetings, we'll be able to make the decision to say, well, we know this and this are going to have, you know, community interest, and we expect quite a number of delegations. We'll now be able to separate that into the additional meetings that have been added. So from our perspective, we look forward to be able to just manage the agenda a little more effectively than we have been able to in the past, allow council to, you know, debate vigorously those items that are of interest to the community, and I think we'll have more balance in terms of how effective the discussions can be in our council chamber.
Okay. One of the intentions when we first discussed through the, I guess I don't have to go through the chair right now, or can I just speak? It's not
That's
formal
fine.
council. One of the things we discussed as we went through this first time was allowing delegations to appear later in the afternoon and doing housekeeping and general items first. I know we never went down that road. I'm just putting it out there for consideration and maybe why we didn't give that a try when we implemented the new time and meeting schedule.
Mr. Nicol?
Thank you. Councillor Mancinelli, it really comes down to a practical question. It's very difficult for us to be able to say, oh, well, that's going to take at least half an hour, be ready at 2 o'clock, and council or committee members are still talking at 3 o'clock on the same item, and these people are waiting. So that's very difficult. So it's really just a practical matter of delegations speak, and as I said, they tend to come to, we deal with them appropriately at the beginning of the agenda. The other thing that you could do, some jurisdictions do this, is you would say we're hearing all the delegations, say from 1 till 2:30 or 3 o'clock, and then we'll break and then we'll resume. Some people last year said, well, if we adjourn or recess for half an hour, I'm not coming back. So not that any of you would want to do that, but I'm just saying that that's another practical challenge that we have.
Yeah, I found the change quite successful. I think with the 2 meetings it should be enough. I was just bringing the points forward because it's something we encountered previously. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mancinelli. Councillor Stevens?
Thank you, through the chair. I believe the clerk had asked for some feedback on the deadline. Deadlines are deadlines. I would enforce it. What I would also suggest is suspend the requirement to actually submit something written, other than a notice that they wish to speak. So basically, we could parallel the subcommittee protocols. And if I'm not mistaken, we agreed to this at some point, and we waived that requirement.
Mr.
It
Nicol?
was, it certainly was raised last year, Councillor Stevens, but my recollection at the end of the day was that a majority of council continued to want written submissions because they felt that there should be some, at least formality or sense, or give members a sense of what was coming from a delegation. Having said that, again, my recollection is that 2 or 3 of the strongest proponents of wanting written submissions are no longer on council. So that was a preference of theirs. I mean, that's really all it was.
I want to go.
Thank you.
Counselor Stevens?
Yeah, I don't want to bring that amendment forward, but I'll put it out there. What I will say and leave it with this is, sure, deadlines are deadlines. I would suggest enforcing them. In terms of the meeting schedule for council, are these 2 separate council meetings, or will we have an agenda set for the first council meeting and then we recess and follow up on the 2 weeks? We could easily fill up these 2 dates with
Yes.
one meeting.
These are standalone separate meetings. They are designed for the council meeting to consider, for example, the first council meeting of the month will consider recommendations from executive committee and the new operations committee. The second council meeting of the month would consider the recommendations from the second monthly executive and the new ops committee. So they just keep folding into the subsequent council meeting.
Thank you. Through the chair, just to be clear, what we are voting on, and the motion is Appendix A, so that's the status quo. Do you require some guidance on which one if we want to deviate from that? Which is the
I
Wednesday
believe-
schedule.
No, it's optional.
Yeah, I think
It's Appendix A.
Appendix A is what we're looking for. Appendix B was the status quo from 2020. So it's Appendix A that is the recommended.
So Appendix A is in the recommendation,
Yeah, okay.
Counselor Stevens, yeah.
Okay, just making sure, thank you. And just to be clear, the Mayor's Housing Commission will be suspended and still be parceled into a Wednesday time slot, is that correct? Currently, it's Thursdays.
That's
No,
correct.
I think Councillor Hawkins' amendment that was passed directed us to establish meetings once a month, but not in conflict. So it would not be on a Wednesday because it would conflict on a Wednesday.
Thank you. Would it not be possible to host it through the chair on the Wednesday where there's a council meeting? The first Wednesday, those are empty until 1 o'clock.
Again, that is a
Well,
possibility.
again, that was part of the motion, wasn't it?
Yeah, yes. Yes.
It just doesn't have to
That-
conflict.
That was part of, part of Counselor Hawkins' motion, I think.
I just want to confirm it's still going to be all on Wednesdays, if we could.
I think through the motion when it read, it was, and Counselor Hawkins, you can maybe just bring some clarity if you don't mind?
As I read this, I may be wrong. But you could schedule it on a Wednesday of a council meeting in the morning without a conflict developing.
Yes, yes, and you certainly could do that. What you have to guard against is if you get into a very lengthy meeting,
Yeah.
we have to have this chamber ready to go right at 1 o'clock. So again, if you made the determination that the new Community Wellbeing Committee met from 9 till 11:30 or 9 till 12, and it was adjourned at 12, that gives us enough time to turn the chamber around, get the media in. So again, that's certainly a possibility, Councillor Stevens.
Through the chair, do you need a motion now, or should we just leave it to you to fill that in at a later date?
Mr. Nichol?
What I think would be more appropriate is to have a motion, because I need 6 of you at least to tell me that you want it on a Wednesday, maybe the second Wednesday of the month or the fourth Wednesday of the month.
I'll move that motion that the new Community Wellbeing Committee will convene on the second Wednesday of each month.
At 9, from 9 till 12?
Yes.
I'm asking for some specificity.
Yes,
Tom.
9.
Okay?
Please.
So Counselor Stevens has put an amendment on the floor. And we'll let Amber craft it. Do you need anything more from Counselor Stevens? So I know we do have people in the queue to speak to the main motion. If you're wanting to speak to the amendment, raise your hand. This is to the amendment. Should I wait till you've got it up then, or do you want me to continue? Okay. So Councillor Zakidnia, do you want to speak to the amendment?
I just have a question. So that's a 3-hour meeting. If the agenda isn't covered in those 3 hours, would it just be carried over to the next month, or there'd be a second meeting planned that month?
Mr. Nichol?
Typically, what happens is any meetings that, or any agenda items at any meeting that are not concluded are deemed to be automatically tabled to a future meeting, future scheduled meeting,
Right.
unless we're directed to call other meetings. So it would move to the following month.
So I support the theory behind scheduling it at that time, but I wonder if 3 hours would be sufficient for this new broader committee covering even more than, what was previously covered with the Housing Commission.
Again, from my perspective, particularly with early days, I'd say it's very hard to know.
Yeah.
I would respectfully suggest that perhaps you start with 9 to 12, and you may find some are done early, some aren't. Again, it's going to depend on, developing the terms of reference and dealing with whatever items or issues are coming forward. So I think as an initial start, that is a good idea. And again, if you found that every meeting was like that, we could hold them on the,
Right.
A different Wednesday. There are 2 Wednesday mornings that are open per month, so again, we have some built-in flexibility if that happens.
Okay. Councillor Findura?
Thank you. I think the 2 or 3 hours, through you, Madam Chair, because I'm looking at if we're going to be debating something as a specific or important issues, we don't need to overload that committee, right? I mean, usually what happens if we overload the committee, then we get overrun with things and we don't make correct decisions or even have a chance to debate. So I think administration can very easily direct us. I don't want to be, but at certain instance, I think administration can give us that visual of what we need to debate, what's out there. And so put 1 or 2 items on the agenda that we can actually start to finish and actually accomplish it, because then you're going to be reporting to somewhere else. I can see it will work. So I don't think we need any more time. And more time doesn't solve what we need to deal with. And so specific, deal with it, make a decision and move. And we can, so I think city manager is nodding, saying it will work that way. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Mr. Holden?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So, to Mr. Nichols' point, it still is early days in terms of what exactly the agendas would look like. So we will be able to be focused, bring reports with recommendation, and, the majority of our committees are scheduled for about 3 hours. So 3 hours is it doesn't seem like a huge amount of time, but I think it's important. It also, will keep us focused in terms of the discussion and the reports that we put in front of you. And if it needs to be adjusted down the road, then we could always move it to another day that doesn't have that restriction in the afternoon. But I think starting on Wednesday makes a lot of sense.
Thank you for that. Councillor Stadnichuk?
Chair, I have a question for administration regarding the staffing support for the committees. Would having the 2 committees back to back, having the wellness committee and then council meeting, create any additional stresses or burdens on staff? I don't know exactly how many staff would come to the committee meetings, but just so that we have an understanding what the impact is on staff.
Good question. Mr. Nichol?
Well, I'll speak to it from the staff here in the city clerk's office. Typically, Ms. Ackerman and I, along with one other member, are involved with the full council. And then we have a council officer who would be assigned to this committee. So it's not going to have an undue impact on my staff because we have to be here anyways. With respect to administration staff, there may be times when there's an overlap between some members having to appear at a committee and as well as council on the same day. But I think that that's just part of a role of a public servant, is you're available when the elected officials are meeting and you deal with it.
Okay, I see nothing further.
Councillor Stevens is laughing.
Do you want to close? No? Okay. All right, so we have an amendment on the floor. I guess we will call for the vote.
I will start with I will start with you, Councillor Stevens, as you move the amendment.
In favor.
Councillor Stadnichuk.
In favor.
Councillor Hawkins. Councillor Findura.
In favor?
Councillor LeBlanc.
In favor.
Councillor Shaw.
In favor.
Councillor Zahidniak.
In favor.
Councillor Mancinelli.
In favor.
Councillor Mole. Oh, sorry, I wasn't looking up. Okay. Mayor Masters.
In favor.
Councillor Bresciani.
In favor.
Okay. Passes 10-0. Just for a procedural thing for the new members, once I start the vote, if Councillor Mole had to come in, I would not recognize him. You've got to be seated in your chair when the vote commences.
Councillor Zahidniak, did you still want to go ahead?
Yeah, I just wanted to note regarding the delegations, having been a delegation myself, the way that I participated was virtually. And I wonder if one day when we are considering bringing delegations back in person, if it would be possible to still have the option for folks to join virtually. I know that it is administratively more of a challenge, but that would make the meetings more accessible for folks who couldn't come in person, that they would have the option to attend virtually. So I'm just curious if that would be a potential option in the future.
Mr. Nichol?
Thank you for that question. I don't see any reason why we can't accommodate that. We're here to support you in being as open and accessible as possible. So if it means something for one of my staff to be monitoring the emails and the connections, but again, that's part of what we're here to do, and we can do it.
Okay.
Okay, I just have I see no other questions. I do have a question, just in regards to making sure that the public have enough time to respond. So if something comes to executive, then I guess the worry I have is it then would come to the next council meeting. Does that only give them then a couple days to understand what the issues were that were coming to executive? Sorry, and I'll repeat the question.
Sure, sorry.
Sorry. So just the wonder is that, so if we have executive, say, on the Wednesday, and then the following week is the council, how much time, my worry is that there's not enough time left for residents to be able to know that it's coming to council. Through the chair.
Okay, well, what we do, Madam Deputy Mayor, is, as you did at the beginning of this meeting, you outlined that reports, unless otherwise directed, are going to the following council meeting. So anybody who's watching the agenda would know, or even if they read the agenda, would know that things then will be coming, for example, a week later. And so then they have the Thursday, Friday, the Saturday, the Sunday, and Monday till noon. So 4.5 days to get in something in writing should they wish to appear. And a lot of the time, those people who appear at committee will also come to council. So their preparation is not, I don't think, is onerous. But people have to be checking the weekly calendar online to see what's coming up. And then that's how they would know.
Thank you. Have we had any feedback from the general public in this regard, that there is a concern with not having known or enough time to get ready for any kind of council items, just in your experience through the chair?
Well, through my experience, and again, it's all anecdotal to some extent, we do have people who will say, well, I didn't know about it. Typically, those people are also the ones who are chronically late in submitting things. And I think we also heard in the last debate at the final council meeting of the old council in October, we had a couple of delegations who said this was the first time that they had heard anything about body rub establishments. And we kind of thought, well, where have you been? So again, it's anecdotal.
Okay. All right. Okay, yeah, I'll leave it there,
Okay.
that's fine.
So I have one thing to add. The deputy clerk is preparing an amendment that I believe Councillor Zahidniak is going to move to put in place this, the option for delegations to continue to access meetings through virtual technology and/or to come in person when that becomes available. Again, it's a specific requirement that we have to be this clear for the bylaw amendment because that's what's required by the Cities Act. So,
Okay, great.
not trying to be overly bureaucratic.
Yeah, no, thank you. Can wait for that. Just to respond to that, I know when we did talk about it, when we had, and one of the topics was massage parlors, we had women that did want to come and speak, but they were from Toronto, Edmonton, wherever. They couldn't, they're not going to put a flight when they're, so it was something that we had requested at that time, and at that time it was deemed that no, we could not do it. So I'm glad to see this come forward. Mayor Masters?
Thank you, Chair. Can you just explain why it was deemed we could not do it?
I'll ask the city manager. Okay, I'll repeat the question.
Please.
Yeah, sorry, I remember when we were speaking with Body Rub massage parlors, and at that time, I had asked if we could have some of the women who could call in, because they actually virtually not going to get a flight here. And I remember we were told that that could not be done at that time, and it was maybe within our guidelines or something like that, but that was told by the mayor at that time and city manager or someone else there.
So
Yeah.
through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, so I think that was pre-COVID, and we
Okay,
just,
yeah, oh, for sure.
so we just did not really allow for that. I think what we've learned through COVID is, we have technology, we can have delegations appear in person, they can appear virtually via Teams. So I think, to Councillor Zahidniak's comment, we have way more flexibility now to make it easier for people to, engage with council than we've had in the past. So if that situation repeated itself today, absolutely we'd make arrangements for those people to be able to participate.
That's great, thank you. And I think sometimes there are experts that don't live in the city that I think we can learn and utilize. So I think, again, learning from COVID has taught us a lot. So thank you for that. Okay, so we have an amendment on the floor. Any other discussions? Councillor
Yes.
Zahidniak, do you want to speak to it?
Yes.
Oh, you have to move it, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't realize I was making a motion today, so.
Well, there you go, first meeting, you're on.
Historic, first one.
Yeah, do I need to read it out now? Like, I don't really have
Please,
anything.
that would be good, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I move that, what do I move? That delegations be allotted to request to attend and address committee and city council through virtual technology or in person. And so now is when, if I had additional comments, I would make those, or first I need a seconder? How does
No,
that
you don't
work?
need a seconder
You
in
don't need a
committee.
secondary committee, so we're okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to make any comments? You can make comments, go ahead. If you'd like to, you don't have to.
Yeah, I just think that, the more options that we can have for folks to participate, the more accessible the process is for people. So I think to me, it just makes sense to have as many options as we can for participation.
Great, thank you. Okay, and Councillor Shaw.
I just want to add to that, I honestly didn't know that you couldn't appear via telephone or through Zoom or however we're going to do it, so very good decision, thank you.
Okay, seeing no further comments, I will ask City Clerk to call the vote.
Sure. I will begin with you, Councillor Zahidniak, as you move the motion.
In favor.
Councillor Shaw,
In favor.
Councillor LeBlanc,
In favor.
Councillor Findura,
In favor.
Councillor Stevens,
Yes.
Councillor Hawkins,
In favor.
Councillor Stadnichuk,
In favor?
Councillor Mancinelli, Councillor Moule,
In favor.
Mayor Masters,
In favor.
Councillor Bresciani.
In favor.
The amendment passes 11-0.
Okay, seeing no further questions, we're back onto the
To
main
the main
motion.
motion
Yeah,
as
back
amended.
onto the main motion as amended, and I will ask the city clerk to call the vote.
Sure. I will begin,
Just wait, Councillor Finder, do you have a question? You're like... Oh, okay.
I will begin with you, Councillor Findura, please.
In favor.
Councillor LeBlanc, Councillor Shaw,
In favor.
Councillor Zahidniak.
Sorry, what are we actually
The main
voting on?
motion.
The
Oh, this
main
is-
motion about the calendars?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
The main report.
In favor.
Councillor Mancinelli.
In favor.
Councillor Moore.
In favor.
Councillor Stadnichuk.
In favor.
Councillor Hawkins.
In favor.
Councillor Stevens.
Yes.
Mayor Masters.
In favor.
Councillor Bresciani.
In favor.
That passes 11-0.
Okay, great. So, thank you for that. Can I have someone move a resolution for private session, please? Councillor Stevens, okay. I'll call the question. All in favor? Good. It's carried. Yeah, and we will meet back here. I guess, can I have a motion to recess the meeting for 15 minutes, which would be about 3:25? Yes? Okay, what's that? Good. All in favor?